Hello and welcome to Tippcast on this Wednesday afternoon. Myself, Shane Stapleton, joined as ever by Head of Sport in Alina Guardian, Shane Brophy. Shane, how are things with you?
Not too bad now. We're all one paper put together and already looking ahead to next week's one with two North teams and a county final. So it's, from my point of view, it's a busy time ahead now. So got to think about what we can build it up like. So sure, look, it's in terms of like we had an All-North final in 2019, I suppose when Boris beat Kiladangan, but like you have two next door neighbours against one another, like so. It's sure it's going to be crack up in Ardcroney and Laharna and Carney up all those border areas over the next few weeks.
Yeah, definitely. And like for Kilruane, it's been so long since they've been in the county final against a team that's from, I suppose, as the crow flies, about 9 kilometres out the road. They're going to know each other very well. But like Kilruane, they must be hopping and trotting in there because they've been so close and yet so far away in recent seasons in terms of getting back to this stage.
Yeah, sure. Like they were, I'd say they were more relieved than anything else. As I'd say they were coming in a little under pressure like last Sunday because look, they lost the semi-final 3 years ago. They were probably marginal favourites, but I thought they were pretty impressive now on Sunday because like they bar maybe a 10-minute spell coming up to half time when Upperchurch got the goal and came back and got within a point of them after the response from Kilruane was superb to the goal and 2 points before half time to go back out to 5 ahead. I think it was 5 ahead. And then in the second half I thought they were always comfortable, probably their own failings in front of goal probably prevented them killing off the game. I thought they had a couple of great chances maybe if they were a small bit more composed, a bit more, maybe the final pass being better, maybe could have filleted a couple of more goals. But I just thought, I thought they were comfortable. And listen to Damien Lawler on our game on Monday saying that even with 5 or 6 minutes to go, they even in the stand they were saying Upperchurch are not going to pull anything out of the hat here. And like there was a sense that maybe Upperchurch ran out of steam a small bit. Maybe the dual. I don't like this thing of the dual thing starts affecting teams. I think it's nonsense really. It's always a handy excuse when you start to lose a game. There's a lot more. Schlockneil have shown it over the years. A lot more. Like it's so sometimes you just lose a game, and I just think maybe Upperchurch just came up against a better team. And as I said to Liam O'Kelly afterwards, and sometimes when these finally pies matches are, and you've seen them over the years, Shane, you have Upperchurch, a very even team, but no star hurlers, whereas Kilruane had Niall O'Mara, had Keane Darcy, and had Drom. And they got the three of them guys to have big games. And I think that was the difference.
Yeah, I mean, who are the players that kind of really kind of stepped up for you in this game? And going into the final, is Jack Peters going to be all right? I mean, Jerome Cahill again, like we've been talking about him all season, just brilliant player. Keane O'Kelly always keeps his marker honest.
Yeah.
But some of these players, they're really, like Mark O'Neill also as well, really top performances here, and they're coming to the boil at the right time. Now we'll get on to Kiladangan and how maybe they're doing the same, but like, can you talk to me about the performances of some of these players and how it kind of stunted Upperchurch?
Yeah, actually, I suppose you were just looking at guys that have the bit of extra class, and look, we already know Niall O'Mara is one of probably the best club hurlers in the county for the last 10 years, and just himself, and then that half-back line just very solid. I think the loss of Jack Peters, I suppose, inadvertently brought Seamus Hennessy into the game, and you're not weakening the Kilruane team when you're bringing Seamus Hennessy on, like he especially in that half-back line spot, and I suppose and then they were able to use Seamus Hennessy as the sweeper in the second half. And sure, God, there's a better man to be able to read the game and then deliver well-drilled ball into the forwards. He's able to do that. But like, there's no doubt that Jerome Cahill was the difference. 1-4 from play. He set up Keane Darcy's goal. He set up that 5-minute spell after Jack Butler's goal. He scored a point. He set up a brilliant point for Willie Cleary, and he set up Keane Darcy's goal. He just anything that was good about Kilruane sort of came through him. And look, I suppose we're tired. I suppose from a Tipperary point of view, you'd love to have him. Look, I'm sure I think we've said it numerous times. If I'm sure Liam Cahill and Michael Beevans are making overtures to him. Look, if it's maybe he'll feel nowadays, maybe at 23, 24 years of age, he's able to maybe give the commitment to senior level again. But look, for the next few weeks, it's all about winning a county championship for Kilruane. And like, look, as long as they have him on the field, they have every chance.
Yeah, and just in terms of like you look at the options that Kiladangan have, and we'll talk about more. They have a lot of different forwards that can come up and score. And obviously, Dan O'Mara came on and scored that goal towards the end, which was a real touch of class. But like the likes of Willie Cleary, Thomas Cleary, big physical presence, and obviously Willie Cleary as much for the frees as anything else because he's so nervous on them. Like they'd have so many players that are contributing, and when you think that Craig Morgan was only lost a few weeks ago, it's they really have kind of taken that blow and kicked on.
Yeah, look, to be honest, they've really got to this final really with 18 players really, and it's either it can be looked as a strength that they're tight or a weakness that if you start getting injuries and difficulty, look, they've got this far, they've got through the last 3.5 games without Craig Morgan, 3 wins in a row. Like you think the Clonolty match in the last round of the group stage, that was a knockout game for them. If they didn't win that game, they were out. So they won that. They beat Tumivara, which was a derby match. They beat Upperchurch. Can they go to the well one more time? I think they need Jack Peters if they're going to do that because, okay, he's a hamstring injury. I'd say you're getting to this stage. I'd say they're going to strap him up and get him out there and see how he goes. Because look, if they win and go into Munster, they'll deal with it after that. But I think it's a county final. I think they'll get him out there in whatever shape they can. If he's not able to go, it means you're probably having to start Seamus Hennessy, which means you're realistically left with no impact sub off the bench. Like Brian O'Mara came on the last day after that. I must go through their panel to see have they used anybody else. I don't think they have. I know that Carl Williams warming up on the sideline on Sunday. He didn't come on. Like they have some guys that would look on their subs bench that probably would have played senior the last few years, but they just haven't gotten game time this year. It'll be a big call for them to maybe one of them to start in a county final. I suppose Ian O'Hogan probably has the ability to start in a county final because he's played senior pretty recently over the last few years, and where maybe you get to hold Seamus Hennessy back as that impact sub. So I look, I said they're really hoping to get Jack on the field if they can at all, because like I suppose he is their full back really, and they don't have an out and out full back replacement. And look, I suppose the manner of the goal they gave up last weekend where TJ Butler or Jack Butler cut in from the wing and the hole just opened up for him in front of Paddy Williams. Nobody went to him. Like, and I don't think Owen Hogan and Kieran Cahill had a spell back there, but you knew they didn't have the defense, the full back instinct to know when to go or when no. They just backed off, and then it was too late when this was in some ways they sort of left it to somebody else, but they suddenly realised, okay, my full back isn't there, and it was too late when they were in that position.
Liam Hogan joins us now. Liam, we're talking about Kilruane's 217-114 win over Upperchurch. Upperchurch have had a great season, and obviously it'll continue in the football, which we'll talk about later on. But what were your thoughts on the match?
I wasn't back in time for the match, Shane. I was in Clonolty at the Moneygall Kilsheelan game. I just arrived back in time for the Kiladangan game. But just hearing from people talking about it like Kilruane and listening to the radio commentary of Ken Hogan and on Tip FM and Kilruane seemed to have missed a lot of goal chances. Jerome Cahill seemed to be the man that was the biggest threat to Upperchurch, and by all accounts, Thomas Cleary got back just in time to save a goal for Upperchurch when time they needed one. And 2 minutes later, we hear he's up the field putting the ball over the bar at the other end. And Kilruane, as Shane was saying there a minute ago, Kilruane shot two of their best defenders going into the final. We hope we see Jack Peters back. Craig won't be back, unfortunately. And but Kilruane are a type of team, like, okay, everyone says their bench isn't good, but at times, as every game develops a life of its own, they have players with a bit of flair. And you take Seamus Hennessy, who a lot of people have wrote him off over the years, and he comes in against Tumivara, 2 balls over the bar, and suddenly he has Kilruane back. It has inspired him again, and there's always a great fight in Kilruane, no matter who they have and who they haven't. And I won't look at Kiladangan will probably go into this game as favourites because of Kilruane's injuries, but I expect it to be a close game.
Yeah, for Jack Peters now, it just depends on the level of hamstring injury he's had before. I remember a couple of years ago getting one, and as soon as I pulled it in training a week out from a final, I was thinking, I'm absolutely done. Then I went to the physio, got absolutely horrendous physio, and I was able to play it again. Definitely not 100%, but you'd hope for his sake he can.
Yeah, I get the feeling. I think he carried it into it because they were worried about him very early. I remember looking at Seamus Hennessy warming up, I'd say inside 10 minutes, and I said, Jesus, they're hardly making a tactical switch this early. So I'd say I was surprised if Jack brought in something into that game. And look, they made an early call. He was gone after 14 minutes. So look, you just saw it. You saw it on his face that he knows himself he's in a race against time. Okay, they hadn't won the game, like it was still a long way to go, but you know yourself, a hamstring, you need minimum 3 weeks to get it properly right. I'm sure, look, Kilruane clubman have probably one of the best physios in Ireland in John Casey, a clubman there. I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if Jack is in with John Casey once, twice a day over the next 2 weeks to give him every chance to play some part in that final. Like Jack has been such a brilliant servant for them over the years, and like I remember seeing him with my Tip Minors and Nina CBS. I always thought he was an inter-county caliber player that we never got to see because he has the ability and he has that leadership and he has that bit of dog in him too. Like he just has everything you want in a full back or a cornerback.
Yeah, and just Liam, in terms of Upperchurch and their season with the hurlers, we'll leave the football just for now, but they really have had an excellent season to get this far, and obviously they'll be disappointed. They were beaten by the better team in the day, but they've had a very good season.
Yeah, I saw them play County League game against Kiladangan up in Puckholm one evening there this spring. And I know Kiladangan were short of a few regulars, I see, because of inter-county. But I was really impressed with the way they hurled that day, and they were pulling away from Kiladangan long before they entered the last quarter. They're touched. Everything about them was good, and they're a great club. A club that's probably confined in terms of numbers, and now they're in a county football final as well. And
they're in the county junior hurling final. They're second team, and they probably have like the Stride Mile Rovers last weekend. I thought was a big surprise. Like so, like they'll think if they can get their junior team, their second team up to intermediate grade, like that's a great way to. They can maybe go on to another level next year.
They're a very progressive club, like, just going to see their facilities, they're fantastic. And look, I'm not surprised either that they got to a county semi-final. I mean, James McGrath is a brilliant coach. It's always Liam Dunphy, a great time for those two men, and they got the most out of them. And I just hope that they'll be back around and fighting for honours again next year.
Yeah,
I suppose so just worried that the problem. I suppose the issue for Overchurch last Sunday was like. It's the same as the quarter-final. Then they relied a lot on Paddy Green. They didn't get enough out of Paul Shanahan. Luke Shanahan was very quiet. Paul Ryan was taken off at half. They needed a second heavy scorer to go with Paddy Green. Like Jack Butler did pretty well, but they probably needed Luke Shanahan to have a big game. But he was very, very quiet on the day. Yeah. I know he's only 19, 20 years of age, but yeah, sort of. Like I suppose Kilruane just got that greater spread of scores, like the Cian O'Kelly that had Willie Cleary, that had Jerome Cahill, that just had and Cian Darcy got 1-1. They just had guys chipping in. And then you mentioned Mark O'Neill. I thought Mark O'Neill must be one of the most improved hurlers in the county. Every year he's getting better and better, and he's unheard. He's an unsung hero of that Kilruane team as far as I'm concerned in the middle of the field.
Yeah. For a player who started out, he's hurling as a very good goalkeeper. Back in the day, he has really developed into a fine hurler. And sometimes you look at see who this number 9. Who when you see his back. One day I thought of Seamus Hennessy. He's just developing such a fine hurler, and he has played so well and so consistently all through the year. Yes, I agree with Shane. Yes, he's very good.
Shane, just to remind me, who did you predict would win these two semi-finals at senior level last week?
I went for Kilruane and I went for Drom. But I stated that the team that I went for Drom because they were the form team. But I said if Kiladangan brought their best, they were the best team left in the championship.
So you had every angle covered. You were right, no matter what.
And
happened.
I was right. They did bring their best last Sunday.
Well, talk to me how good you thought they were. Like, so it finished up Kiladangan 121, Drom and Inch 117. David Sweeney was excellent. Brian Loughney was knocking over his frees entry from play. The likes of Sean Hayes and Joe Gallagher, as he always seems to do when they're under pressure. They scored 3 each, and brilliant goal laid on from Dan O'Mara. So just talk to me about the performance and how good Kiladangan were, and are they now back to being their usual selves?
The thing with the energy was back. I think, okay, the first 10 minutes they went 4-1 down. You said, God, the malaise is still going on. But after that, they just look like the Kiladangan team of the last few years. Their work rate, I thought, was way up. They harried and hassled Drom all over the field. I would have said 3 key players for Drom and Inch were Podge Campion, Fintan Purcell, and John Campion. I thought they were very, very quiet on the day. And you have to give Kiladangan an awful lot of credit. I thought there was a very subtle tactical shift at the start of the match. Kiladangan put Joe Gallagher out on the wing on Fintan Purcell. Fintan Purcell rarely got up the field like he did in the recent matches. Then Sean Hayes, who had been very quiet in the last few games, he sort of got into that area between around the 65-yard line when Podge Campion sat off. Hayes stayed where he was, but no Drom and Inch midfielder picked up the space to mark him, and he picked off 2, 3, 4 pints from play and drifted into pockets. And I thought that was the thing. Like, the Kiladangan got 6 pints from play between those 2 players, whereas Campion, Purcell, and Johnny Campion never scored. And if you in those group matches, Purcell and the 2 Campion boys were always chipping in with a couple of pints from play long range in the game. They never got them in the match last Sunday.
Yeah. Liam, it's a 4th county final for Kiladangan since 2016. They're incredibly consistent and used to being in games like this. I'm sure that they never panicked even when their form wasn't at its best level coming into this.
No, if their ears were to the ground after the quarter final win, I'm sure they were pretty red. A lot of their supporters weren't happy with the way they played in the quarter final, but they were against Brackens. But they got over the line, and look, last Sunday was a major improvement, and they were getting better as the game went on, and probably could have won. Be more than that total. Like Dan scored a great goal, but a few minutes before that, he nearly broke the crossbar with a rasper of a shot that went out over the sideline, the far side of the field. And I thought Willie Connors had one of his best games this year. I thought he hurled really, really well. There's another chap there in the middle of the field, Tom O'Mara, an unsung hero who continuously improves every day he goes out. Okay, he doesn't get on a lot of ball, but he's constantly on the tail of his opponent and never gives him a moment's rest. I thought David Sweeney played very well. I thought John O'Mara played very well. James Quidley played well. Paul Flynn was back to what we expect of him. And Sean Hayes as well. A good all-round improvement in every sector of the field. But look, it remains to be seen now. Will the favourites tag sit nicely on their shoulders? We have yet to know.
Yeah, geez, I'm sure Kiladangan would love a crack at Munster, having missed out a couple of years ago because of the lockdown. But Shane, how much of it is down to Kiladangan only finding their feet properly now, having players away and maybe 1 or 2 injured at different stages, that maybe they have everyone together for the last few weeks, but still, like you were worried about the balance before. I mean, there's probably more to come from Billy Seymour. We haven't really seen his top form either. But yeah, like, how much of it is down to having players away and stuff like that?
I'd say that has to be some of it. Like, Willie Connors, he more or less lost 6 months this year with the injury, and they're gradually bringing him back. Look, I'm sure if Willie Connors was 100%, Willie Connors wouldn't be in corner forward. He'd be around the midfield, half forward line, picking up ball, getting into pockets of space and bringing others into the game. So look, I think the management are probably no fools. Maybe they probably know that maybe Willie just doesn't have the endurance at this stage. He's probably gradually getting better. Look, Billy Seymour probably had his most effective game in the championship on Sunday. he got on a couple of balls. We know there's more in him too, but like he was away during the summer. Like they're bedding in nicely. They looked a bit more. Yeah, they're a bit more cohesive at the weekend. Like, look, John O'Mara is only young lad in cornerback, but God, he had a fine game again. Like Darren Moran, for a guy who maybe lost his place the last few years, is after really gaining it back again. Like, so it just shows you like there's a bit of resolve in these guys. But like they have a very, very deep panel. You look, Dan O'Mara couldn't even kind of get a place in the starting team at the moment. But then you look at the 6 forwards. Who do you drop to get him in there at the moment? Like, it's just, that's the riches to have. Rory Gleeson came on as a sub. I think he scored 5 points the day before in the intermediate relegation, or the Premier Intermediate relegation final. So, look, he's another option to bring on. Fergal Hayes, Jack Lucknan. And that's, look, I know we'll preview the final probably next week. I just think that that ability to bring on subs could be the difference in the final. As look, we've shown that Kilruane, they had a big panel. They've only used 16, 17, 18 guys in the championship so far, and it's a big risk, like especially when injuries start to crop up.
Yeah, I tell you, training the next.
Sorry, Shane. In addition to what Shane has said, there you have Dara Butler, and you have Conor Byrne, and Fergal Hayes, and Johnny Horton on the subs list there as well. Owen Sharkey and Martin Minahan, Dara Flannery. Dara Flannery was a permanent fixture on the team up to last year, and he's just a sub. And then to see you have a talented man like Rory Gleeson come in as a sub in the last few minutes there, that is good, yes.
Yeah, that'll make the training sessions fairly tasty in Kiladangan the next week or two in terms of like lads trying to impress management for an impact role. But Kilruane for the same reason, like lads will know now, maybe we're down 1 or 2 players. Maybe if Peters does start, maybe he can't finish. So I'm going to have to impress, in the next training or two if they get any sort of a chance. Liam, you were at the relegation final between Templederry Kenyans and Éire Óg Anacarty Donahill the other day. It finished 221 to 19 points to Templederry. So, obviously bad news there for Éire Óg, normally the relegation specialist. But how did the game go and what was the difference?
The game hinged on 2 important points. First of all, the 8-point win probably doesn't do justice to Éire Óg Anacarty. The Matthew Hogan got a goal in the last minute, which put daylight and to the identity Tipperary could feel comfortable going as the minutes down to the final whistle. But in the first half, Daramoni had a massive influence in the game in the first half. He scored 3 points, and he scored 1 from play after a 1-2 puck-out system. And he had the breeze to help him, of course, and he's a mighty belt of a ball, so he has. And he went down and took a penalty, and in fairness, Tim McCutcheon made a very, very, very good save. Had Daramoni scored that, they were 5 points ahead at that stage. Then, after half-time, Tom Fox got injured. And Tom Fox was having a very good game for Éire Óg Anacarty. He was a major loss to Anacarty when he went off injured. But Tipperary had these players who were able to pick off scores a little bit more easily. Oran Murphy was very good. He scored 5 points, including 1 from a fantastic sideline ball. Gerard Ryan. Will we ever see the end of him? 3 fantastic points, and from distance as well. And then if you were in trouble, then you had Sean Ryan, who had another very, very good game as well. And this batch of Tipperary players have entertained for so long, for the last 9 or 10 years, and it's a golden period for Tipperary. It would probably be unfair to see them going down because they have so much to offer. What are they like going forward in the future? There's probably a little bit more in the legs of Gerard Ryan and company and the Murrays and all that, and not forgetting the 2 Stapletons. I mean, they're still hurling. They're like young lads. And Christy Cotton, full back, who was very good again. He never lets the side down. But yeah, I feel that those 2 points had influence on the game. Had Mooney scored a penalty, 5 points ahead, what would Tipperary do? And then Tom Fox going off. But I think Tipperary, as I said in the report, they just about deserved to win that game.
Yeah, Shane, so for Tipperary, they'd be hoping next year to get a more favourable county group stage, or, they had a bit of a group of death this year. And for Éire Óg, it's a bitter pill to swallow.
It is, but look, I suppose they've been they've been sailing close to the wind in relegation the last few years. I think this only survived 2 years ago in the final against Burgess. So look, I think they've had a great run. 16 years since they won that county intermediate final. I think it was 2006. So look,
they were in the county semi-final though, wasn't it? Only like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, well, I'd say look, their pick wouldn't be huge, and look, that team would have had maybe Conor O'Brien, Brian Fox, Ronan O'Brien in their prime. Look, a lot of probably leading players are probably, I suppose, are getting on a bit. Look, the underage the last few years, they're amalgamated. They're playing a lot of C grade hurling. So look, I think they were punching above their weight, I suppose, in some ways for maybe the last couple of years, and maybe look, they've succumbed now, and look, they'll be one of the favourites for the Premier Intermediate next year. I'd have absolutely no doubt of. Look, they'll summon some reserves and they'll come again. But look, I do agree with Liam. I think it would have been cruel on Tipperary to go down after 1 year. I think I know the fact that Cormac McGrath was in with the Tip Miners, maybe they were maybe slow to get going this year, and maybe as the championship got on, they got better. Maybe be interesting to see whether Cormac commits to another year there next year, or whether they'll go afresh. And as you say, look, sure, they're as competitive as anyone. Like, they'll feel like if they can hit the ground running next year, you'd like to think they're probably not going to get as tough a group as they got in the championship this year, and maybe it gives them a chance of maybe not being involved in relegation next year. But from their point of view, look, I'm sure at the start of the year, if Tipperary are offered, you'll get a second year in senior hurling, they definitely would have probably taken that.
Yeah,
that's without to both supporters of both teams after the game, just to get the feel of what they were saying. And Anna Carty definitely were more worried. Darren Mooney, I think, is to go for surgery at the end of the year, and if he does, they'll be wondering whether he'd make a comeback or not. And you have the Foxes, who have served the club and county so well. They're pushing towards the end as well. And like, as Shane said, there's underage players aren't coming through like the way you'd want them to be. But it's worrying. Look, like all country clubs, a lot of country clubs are struggling for numbers as we go forward to 2023, and with players thinking of heading off to overseas, God knows where that will leave the clubs. So Errogan and Curty will be worried, I think.
Okay, so moving on to the Premier Intermediate semi-finals, Roscrea and Gortnahoe Glengoule had a couple of wins. Gortnahoe beat St Mary's 318 to 22 points there. And Shane, you saw an awful lot of Roscrea against Burgess, 119 to 117.
Yeah, I saw the last 10 minutes before half time and the whole of the second half. Yeah, I suppose that was the time when Roscrea started to, I suppose, turn the screw. Like, it was all Burgess in the first 20 minutes. They were really dominant. You said, God, their brilliant run of form is going to continue here. But I suppose that Conor Dooney goal just about 5 minutes before halftime, it just settled Roscrea down, and like there was a bit of a breeze in Nina on Saturday, and like they were within 3, I think, at halftime, and then at the start of the second half, they just got their running game going. Like, they're very, very good at creating overlaps coming out with the defence, and look, they have, I think, Evan Fitzpatrick had another big game. Conor Sheedy had a big game. Alan Tyne, and a lot of the ball came through him as well. And look, they were hanging on for a finish. I think they got 5 clear before Burgess made a bit of a late burst. But look, it was a very, very competitive game. It was great to see such a big crowd in Nina last Saturday afternoon for that game. Just as you just showed, would have meant for both clubs to get to a final, particularly Roscrea, because look, they're a big town. There's only one club in that town, whereas you look at some other areas, you could have 2 clubs in one area. Like, they're one club town. They love their hurling there, but look, we're always looking at them to know when are they going to come, when are they going to get a great team to come again. And look, they're leaving no stone unturned. Like I say, Liam England is over the team. They've drafted in Eddie Brennan and Reese and Reeks. Like, so like they really want to get back to the senior grade as quick as they can. But God, they're going to have it all to do against Gortnahoe in the final, because they're motoring. And one thing Gortnahoe were able to do is get goals, and that was the difference in their match with St Mary's.
Yeah, and what are you hearing about Eddie Brennan in terms of his involvement with Ross Gray? Having had him with Kula for half a season there, I found his sessions to be very good, and he's a good speaker in the dressing room, and the sessions are always enjoyable.
I just know that just Lee Minion mentioned that I haven't got delved into any more into. I suppose, look, maybe that's when you get to this age of the season, you want to do something different, maybe just to keep guys focused. And I suppose there was a sense, and Liam would have probably agree with me, maybe in some of the group stage matches, they were good without being great. But I definitely think in the quarter final and semi final, they've definitely picked things up. Whether Eddie Brennan's arrival has done anything to that, or I think it might be more the fact that Alan Tynan's on the field now, and I just think I think Liam England said on the radio the other night, he takes watching, but he also he relishes the punishment. If you had 10 puck outs, Alan would nearly want to put his hand up to win the 10 of them, and if he gets in the ball, he'll just bring others into the play, and I think that's what's different with Ross Gray the last two games. It brings the likes of Evan Fitzpatrick and Shane Fletcher and kind of Connor Dooley's another. I thought I was very impressed with him the other day. Like, just brings those sort of Luke Cashin, just brings the sort of the ball players and the finishers into play. Takes a bit of the pressure off them in terms of having to win the ball.
Yeah, and Stephen Murray scored 14 points. Now, he was very good, but 13 of those were frees. So he was limited from play somewhat, and he tends to shoot the lights out for Burgess. So that's another mini win, I suppose, Liam, for Ross Gray in this game. But between them and Gurtahu, Glengool, you have two teams in serious form now.
Yeah, I saw the last 10 minutes of the Burgess Ross Gray game, and I was impressed with how the Ross Gray were hurling. Okay, there was few tense moments in the last few minutes, and you thought maybe Burgess might get this goal and force extra time, but have been good all through the year. But I feel they needed that little bit extra if they want to win this competition out. And I think that from what I saw the last 10 minutes, that stepped up a little bit more. I saw the game of Gurtahu versus Portrue in the quarter final, and I was very impressed with Portrue or with Gurtahu that day. And like what Burgess have, Gurtahu have an excellent free taker in Keane Hayes, who was unerring from frees, and this is the fruit now of their county final under two county under 3-1 titles in 2016 and 2019. And they were a very, very young team. I think there's only about two of them over 25 or so. I didn't do too much research on that, but for just talking to one or two connections I have in Gurtahu, that they have, this is a young team, and it's a team that is going well at the moment. They won the county under 15 hurling final last year. They beat Moneygall Clonakilty. They surprisingly lost. They were expected to win the county minor this year, but it just didn't happen. They're a fine team, but Moneygall Clonakilty caught them. Ross Gray are probably improving that little bit, and that little bit of cuteness they have could get him over the line in this final, but it promises to be a very close one.
Yeah, Shane, Liam talked about Gurtahu having some of that underage success, but so like St. Mary's have had underage success at A level, so I'm sure this would be a big blow to them losing this semi-final.
Yeah, I think it would. I suppose if you looked at 2017, these two teams met in the county intermediate final, and St. Mary's won that and won it comfortably enough. And like that was off the back of two back-to-back minor A championships. But it just shows you the way clubs and players can develop at a different rate. Like, and just because you win A championships means very little. If look, Upper Church Drumban success probably hasn't been built off a lot of under A success. It's about bringing through young lads at a different level, or just bringing two young lads and retaining them. And like, there's no doubt Gurtahu have done that impressively, and like they're in a brilliant spot going into the final. I think they're the form team, but everybody will be expecting Ross Gray to win the final. So like, the Gurtahu will probably go in as underdogs, even though I think even though in form, I think they're the best team in the championship so far. Plus, they played in the county final in the stadium 2 years ago when they beat Mine Temple Toohey against the Head in the intermediate final. They weren't expected to win that day either. So like, as Liam said, they're a very, very young team, but they're very, very. They don't seem to get phased by much. The bigger the challenge, the better they seem to get.
Yeah, Carrick Swan saved their bacon in the Premier Intermediate relegation final, 118-17 against Kiladangan B. So, like kind of as we said last week, to get relegated down to intermediate, at the expense of another club's second team would have been a big blow. So I'm sure they're very relieved there.
Oh yeah, definitely. It would have been a big blow for the Swan to go down. Then you would have had one of the biggest towns in Tipperary having two intermediate teams, but look, they're still in the Premier Intermediate. The thing for the Swan is they're brilliant in the South Championship. It's something about it. Liam would probably agree with me that the South Championship really gets their juices going, but whatever it is about the county series, they can't seem to get themselves up to the same level for games. And I think they have players that, if they can bring that focus they bring for South games into the county and Premier Intermediate, they're a match for anyone. And I think definitely one player of the last couple of years, I think he's worth a look at for the county squad is Gavin O'Halloran. And look, he had a massive game for them on Saturday in that final. And and there's no doubt Liam Cahill, if there's one person that would know the Swan lads better than most, is Liam Cahill. So it'd be interesting to see if he gets a call up over there or gets a phone call in the next while.
Yeah, you mentioned already, Liam, that you were at Moneygall's win over Kilsheela Kilcash in the intermediate quarter final, 16 points to 1-9. Who impressed you?
Moneygall's work rate really impressed me. This was a horrible time of the day because it absolutely rained buckets down on the teams in the first half. This is a repeat of last year's county semi-final, which Kilsheela won, ironically, on another wet day over in Littleton. But Moneygall came out with the starting solids with speed. There were 8 points to nil up before Kilsheelan realised that, hey, there's a game on here. And the reliables, of course, came to the fore. And Joe Forty was having a great hope in 20 minutes. So he was, as was Sean Kennelly. Paddy Forty and Bob Kinney and Conor Ryan and Brendan Toohey really working their socks off. Perhaps maybe Joe struggled a little bit in the second half. I don't know if he fully fit yet, but he scored 12 points on a day which was not conducive to free take and 10 of them from frees. I think that Kilsheelan came back well in the second half, but they were dependent on Martin Gibson frees, and injuries I think have taken their toll on Kilsheelan. Bill Maher doesn't seem to have the same influence as he had before this, and the injury that he'd had during the year has obviously taken his toll.
Paul Maher didn't play either.
Paul Maher, yes, and you have Moneygall will probably want to forget about the big defeat to Laura in the North Championship semi-final there back in Rosgrave there back in June or early July. I think they have improved quite a lot since then, and they're a team with a mission, and like the club is going well at the moment. Like they won the county minor there last that was a great weekend for them, and they won't fear anyone going in the semi-final, and I can see I'm going to predict a Laura Moneygall county final, which I think would be great. It would be great for the game, great for the intermediate grade. Two teams with fantastic traditions down through the years, and I expect it to be a close one as well. I think Moneygall have improved a lot, and when the questions were asked of the back line in the second half, Colin Kindy was very good at full back, so he was. And you had Jack Kerwin and Roddy Tehan, and then Kieran Quinlan, who seems to have really got gained confidence in the goals. He played very well through the game as well, and that's the way I saw it. Again, it was a horrible day. Rained very heavy the second half where things were a little bit better, but Moneygall, I think, Lord beware.
And they managed to keep Mark Keogh to just a point, which is no mean feat as well. Skeena Rinky beat Golden Kilfeacle 8 points to 5 again. No doubt the weather wasn't great there, but geez, very low score and 13 points in over an hour. Hurling isn't exactly shooting the lights out. Drom and Inch 119, Knockavilla Doneski Kickens 211. And then the torture, Shane, that you went through. Laura 123, Bursa Kane 25 points after extra time. I'd say a tough day to be on the sideline with a club team trying to get through something like that.
I look. I've never put down an 80, 90 minutes like that before. That was horrendous. Like they're just even when in the first half when Laura were 7 points up, I just felt, geez, it's not quite clicking here. And then the second half, Borsakane just kept chipping away, and like then they got ahead in injury time, and I said, God, this is not going to happen here. And look, in fair juice to our lads, they were. I just thought that when the pressure was really on, they responded brilliantly. Like twice in extra injury time, they fell behind, and twice they managed to win the next puck out and went up, got the equaliser, and somehow in extra time they just managed to. They got their noses in front and managed to stay in front. And look, it was just. Like I suppose it was like how we were tested by Bo Harlan. This was sort of a different type of a test in that it was a lot more pressure on this one because it's a local derby, and everybody was saying you should beat Borsakane, and these are local derbies, and when all our lads have played Borsakane up through the years, they know how good they are, and when they're on their game, they're very, very good. And look, we didn't help ourselves with some of the fouls we were giving away, some silly frees, keeping them scoreboard ticking over for Boris. But look, we're still there, and she's just hoping, I suppose, that we can look. We're still standing. I suppose that's the way. I don't think Moneygall or Skaheen or Drom would be anyway fearful of us. Like I think there's been a lot of stuff spoken of why Laura should win this championship handy, but as we all know, nothing is ever handed to anyone. You've got to go win it, and we have a lot to do over the next few weeks.
Yeah, Moneygall against Skaheen in the next round, and Drom and Inch against Laura in the other semi-finals. So they'll be hard-fought games. The Junior A semi-finals, Grange Muckler Ballyneal beat Thurles 121-18. Upper Church Soft Mile Rovers 419-212, and the Junior B quarterfinals, Solihead beat Drom and Inch 219-17. Laura bet Clarahan 113-3. Thurles Sarsfields Knockavilla Dundee Kickham's, that was Thurles by 317-17, and Portrue beat Care 213-19. There's an intermediate hurling relegation final this weekend, Liam. Ballynahinch against Shannon Rovers. So your own club there. 70 years since Shannon Rovers were down junior. Is it going to happen after this weekend?
I certainly hope not. But this is one game I fear going against Ballynahinch. We haven't had good luck against Ballynahinch since we won the North title in 2010. 10 meetings we've had since then, and Ballynahinch has won the 9 of them. And the one that didn't win was the day Shane McGrath wasn't playing in the North Championship back in 2021. And like Shane has not played all the games this year for Ballynahinch, but he's concentrating on the Junior C team. But they're gone now, so he's back on the frame again. And it's going to be a titanic game for two clubs desperate to try to stay up. And I'm not going into this game with a great degree of confidence. Shannon Rovers play well, but don't play well enough to put a team away when it matters most in the last 8 or 9 minutes of a game. And Ballynahinch, look, if we get over this line, to be a sweet one. As you say, 70 years. Yes, they went down in 1950 and stayed there for 2 years and came back and won the 52 championship. And that team developed into won the intermediates in 54, albeit on an objection, but they developed into a fine senior team during the 50s and the early 60s. And of course, we went back down again. And
I think it was 2002 when Ballynahinch came up from junior. So like they've had a good run at it.
They have, yeah.
It's going to be a big blow for whichever club goes down.
Big blow, and a big blow for the intermediate championship in North Tipperary, because it'll be Kiladangan are coming down now. We're still going to have the same number of teams, and it's the last thing either team wanted, but unfortunately that's the way it is. And it's funny the way a game of hurling goes. I back in 2018, we reached the county semi-final. We lost to a very good Thurles team, but earlier that year we played Moneygall in a game that Moneygall should have won. And we recovered after Willie Green missed an open goal, and we recovered and went down and scored 2-4, and we got to a county semi-final. So it's amazing the way a game, as Brian Cody often said, a game takes a life of its own, and hopefully next Sunday the game will take a life that will give Shannon Rovers the head. But I wish Bandy Hinch the best of luck.
Yeah, between talking to you about Laura and Shannon Rovers, the two of you are feeling the pinch there at the moment with the action going on.
Actually, it's like you were coolish. It's just great to have teams involved at this stage of the championship. But to be worse if a club was out of the championship in September and not to get your teeth into. Like everybody's looking at Upper Church and any of the clubs that are left in it. Like it's great for our own club to have. We have two teams left in county semi-finals, which is. I can't remember the last time that ever happened with us, and like it's if we get one of them over the line, it'd be great. And I know the Rovers have two big camogie matches this weekend as well, so it might offset the pain a small way. I think the two matches on Saturday are clashing, isn't it? The intermediate camogie and intermediate hurling, which is a bit of an annoyance.
I thought Shane was an hour and a half between the starting times. I thought a quick dance to the fixtures there. Now maybe I read the fixture list too quick. I think it's an hour and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, so but I know what you mean. Like, it was disappointing not to have Burris Lee to cheer on there for the last, I suppose since the end of the group stages. And watching Coola the other day lose to Nafina in the semi-final, that was a fairly frustrating hour or so. I think we'll say goodbye to Liam at this stage. So Liam, thanks very much for joining us, and hopefully we'll be doing it again soon. And best of luck to Shannon Rovers.
Thank you very much, Shane, and I see you, two Shanes. Great talking to you. Yes, I just to add, just say, like, you know, Tipperary were in a tough group this year. Burris Lee were in a tough group this year. If they're in any other group to probably qualify for a knockout stage, like, you know, it's just that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks very much, Liam.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Bye. Okay, so Shane, we've to talk about the county football final this weekend. It's a quick turnaround for Upper Church Drumban, but do you know what? Maybe it's the best thing that could possibly happen. Something to refocus the mind straight away.
Yeah, I think that's it. And I think I might have posed the question here last week that I think with Connor, that if they got been in the football final, would it allow them to hurl a little freer in the hurling final? And I don't know, maybe there's an element that just never. They never brought the full level of intensity. So maybe their mind was softened a small bit by in the football final. Not that they're minding themselves. Maybe subconsciously they were a little soft, knowing that they have a big day coming, and maybe they just didn't quite bring the levels they needed in the hurling. But look, as I say, few hours. Maybe the fact that, look, I'm sure as disappointed as they were to lose to Kilruane, I'm sure within an hour, all those players will realise, look, we didn't play well enough to beat Kilruane. There's nothing we can do about it now. I'm sure Sunday night they were already refocusing for next Sunday. And look, it's a massive occasion for those that club and that group of players. First ever county senior football final. They're going to be raging underdogs. But look, who's to say they won't get the result? I suppose they know what's coming. They've played commercials twice over the last 12 months, last year's quarter final and this year in the group stages. Look, lost both games. If there was a concern for Upper Church, is the fact that when commercials played a first-time finalist in 2019 in J.K. Brackens, the match was over at half-time. And commercials will sense that. They will know Upper Church might be a little nervous. If we go for the kill inside the first 15 minutes, it could be over at half time. And commercials are commercials. You look through the commercials team, you think this team is not just good enough to win a tip. This is a team that could stick it up to some of the good teams in Munster, like if they got through, like so. And then commercials would be a bit stung having the title ripped from their grasp by a lot more last year. So look, they'll be fully firing for this one.
Yeah, without doubt. Like, look at the quality that Clonmel have. Jack Kennedy, Michael Quinlivan, Kevin Fahey, Sean O'Connor, Jason Lonergan, Michael O'Reilly, Pádraig Loram. They've all, worn tip jersey very recently. As you said in your preview, Seamus Kennedy normally would. And there's other players as well that have worn Tipperary colours at different levels as well. And they're chasing title number 20. I agree with you. Like, that's a team that can not only just win tip, but kick on again. But do you think that Upper Church's challenge is they haven't gone through the whole thing of being in the county final, standing there for the parade where you're just kind of on show there for whatever it's going to be in a couple of minutes as you're waiting for it all to kick off. the pressure can seep in a little bit. But I suppose the upside is they've played some of the biggest matches the club has ever played in the last few weeks. So, I mean, as long as they're prepared for the fact that, we're going to go out, we're going to stand there, the entire eyes of the county will be on us, they should be okay.
Yeah, look, that's it. Look, I'm sure that there's people going to be flying home from different parts of the world this weekend to be there. I say the pre-match parade and stuff like that. There's little things that make final day a little different. It's in the stadium. It's where it's the best pitch in the county. So, but look, the pitch in Golden for the semi-final was top class, and Upper Church outplayed Lockmore that day in terms of football. The only concern is an awful lot of their scores go through the Shanahan brothers, Paul and Luke, and you can, like, Commercials have got a good look at the pair of them in the group stage game, and like, if there's one thing that Commercials are very, very good at, in the two matches against Upper Church over the last 12 months in the semi-final, they're a brilliant team and making tactical adjustments at half-time, because in all those three of those matches, they have won the second half decisively. They're just able to figure things out. And look, you say they just have such a depth of talent there. Fascinating to see Michael Quinn-Niven sort of playing in a deeper, maybe half-forward line midfield role. And I do always think that I'd love to have seen him play that role for Tipperary, because I think if you have him attacking the goal, his long stride, he's very effective. Sometimes I think a player like that, who, if you leave him inside, he's utterly dependent on the service that's coming into him. And a lot of time, you're left waiting, whereas maybe you can make things happen when you're further out. But look, I'm just hoping that it's going to be a good competitive game of football. It's hard to see anything but a Commercials victory. But look, I don't know, Upper Church are sort of a team. They're very seasoned. While it's their first final, an awful lot of guys very experienced there. They've got plenty of games in the stadium playing hurling, so that probably maybe negates that a small bit. But I just think Commercials might have just too much scoring power for them on the day.
Yeah, I think that'll be a feeling across the board. John Collins says, I think Upper Church are tired. It's been an incredible year for them, but it's the same group of lads, battle weary, not necessarily battle hardened. So that's something they're going to have to come through. The Ballina are looking for back-to-back promotions, but they're going to be without their goalkeeper for Sunday's intermediate football final against Mullinahone, which is a big blow because he's a key player.
Yeah, it's first, I suppose, just a unlucky circumstance with fixture classes. It was Jack Brady, who would have played Tip minor for a number of years. He's also a class soccer player. He plays in goals for Treaty United, and I suppose, unfortunately for Ballina, Treaty United are playing in the FAI Cup semi-final on Sunday. As was not many people would have expected a first division team to be this far in the competition, but they are there, and they're away to Derry City, of course, the probably the furthest place you could go to. And of course, Ballina are playing an intermediate final on Sunday at the same time against Mullinahone. So look, it's just crew luck on Jack. He'd love to have played in both games, and look, we all know with his ability as a goalkeeper. When we know with the modern goalkeeper in Gaelic football, kick-outs are massive, and you just think that's one player you just can't afford to lose. And look, he also kicked 3 long-range threes in the semi-final, so you're down a place kicker as well. So I would have thought, while these teams played in the group stage, and Mullinahone won by 5 points in last August, Ballina didn't have Stephen O'Brien, and he's come back in brilliant form. And I said, this O'Brien could be the thing that swings it, but now I think that just Jack Brady could swing it back towards Mullinahone now. But you just think Mullinahone now know they can press the Ballina restarts, because you're okay. While they have an experienced guy in Jerry O'Brien there, it's just not the same. It's just a huge loss now. It's just tactically it's a big loss for Ballina.
Yeah, Jerry O'Brien was a full back last year. But also Ballina, they're hoping that Teddy Doyle, who obviously transferred in, the Kerry man, that he'll be available after missing the last few games without injury, and they're already without Owen Dalton and Mike Grace, so they're being pushed to the pin of their collar already. Of the high-profile names that we know from Mullinahone, from hurling, is there many of them that are also going to be playing football this weekend?
Actually, you would have. I think they all do. I suppose they will be going to, they have their 2 county men, Mikey O'Shea and American Kyo. So like Mikey O'Shea had a great campaign with Tip this year. Very, very, very elusive inside forward. Like, look, all those Mullinahone guys can play football. I suppose it's easy to forget from Mullinahone. For much of their existence, they were a football club. It was really only the arrival of John Lahey on the scene in the late 90s that really brought hurling to the forefront in that club. And like it's 20, 30 years on, hurling is number one and football number two. But look, they would love to be on Sunday afternoon thinking we're a jewel. They want to be classed as Upper Church and Knockmore and Brackens, and we're a jewel senior club. And I think while I would have feared maybe with the split season and maybe trying to alternate hurling and football, maybe it would hurt football. It actually seems to be it worked the other way. It's becoming really a badge of honor now to be seen as a jewel club. Look, and you've seen around the county or around the country, it's a lot of the clubs that are playing both codes that are going very well. Like, okay, they might win one or the two, or they might lose. But look, you look at in Offaly for Ban Belmont, they're very more or less the same group of players. Lockmore, Commercials, and St Mary's. I think it proves the fact that regular games doesn't hurt you. Maybe look, we saw Lockmore to win 19 weekends last year. I think if you allow a dual situation to be an excuse, you can allow it to affect you. But look, I think match more games, guys getting fitter and stronger. Like, I think a lot of clubs are able to deal with it.
Yeah, and then there's the benefit of the tactics of football is coming more and more into hurling, and it isn't going any place either. And like, just even look at the setup for Brendan Cummins' under 20, bringing in Shane Stapleton, my own namesake, who would have a foot in both codes, and Fintan O'Connor, I suppose, to some degree as well, and Brendan himself as well. So all teams, I think, at this stage are borrowing from football tactics. So maybe that's helping clubs who have been playing football away for a good few years and have had to delve into that.
Sometimes you can be sitting waiting between games and you're overthinking things and doing too much training. That was we were interviewing Kilruane's manager Liam O'Kelly afterwards, and he was keen to stress, lads, we have a County Junior B football quarter final next Saturday against Mullinahone. Now, I'd be shocked if any of the starters or the hurling team playing that match. I just can't see them taking the risk, but they will be fielding a team on Saturday and they'll be going out to win. It mightn't have the Keane Darcys or the Craig Morgans who played in the North final, but they'll be fielding the team and they'll be going out to win. Yeah.
Any final thoughts before we finish up?
Not I don't know if you think of any. I suppose it's this time of the year you're always there's. I suppose we're probably only about a month away from teams going back inter-county training. I'd say early November you'll see a lot of inter-county managers maybe announcing their extended squads. So I'm sure Liam Cahill's there's rumours that he's made the approaches to the players he wants. I don't think there's going to be any public announcements till county finals are played, because you have to give the clubs and the players the respect they deserve. That their focus now is on inter-county, but be interesting to see what happens in the next few weeks.
Yeah, definitely. It's all starting off with the freshers and the Fitz and the Sigerson, and it's all kicking off in the next couple of weeks. So that's it. Don't forget to pick up a copy of the Nina Guardian. We'll see you again next Wednesday. Thanks very much, Shane.